Well, hello there, AgGrad Nation. Thank you for tuning in. Very excited on the response we're getting from these videos where we get to talk to somebody who's really living the life, do a career spotlight of somebody who's actually working in these jobs day in and day out, getting feedback that they're valuable for two reasons. Number one, because it allows for career discovery, careers that maybe you didn't know existed. And I think maybe we might have an example of that here today, depending on your experience in the poultry and meat industry. But also because you actually get to hear what it's really like, not just a job description, not just a recruiter. You get to actually hear what the job really feels like, looks like, and acts like on a day-to-day basis. So I'm happy with the response we're getting. I'm glad to hear that some of you are getting real value out of this and being able to project yourselves in these roles a few years down the road. We are intentionally getting people on this show that are earlier in their career so they can still remember what it was like before they had the job and how they got the job, et cetera. So one of the aspects of the industry that when I got into recruiting surprised me because it is just so much more robust and dynamic and the talent demand is so huge is the poultry industry. And there are a lot of interesting and unique aspects of the poultry industry that maybe don't apply to other aspects of agriculture. And that includes, things on the live production side, as well as on the meat processing side, and then the further processing side. And so actually we have somebody who's going to be able to talk to us about working on that further processing side, which is, he'll elaborate in some more detail today. But we have on the show Colton Cuny. He's a junior sales executive at Gold Creek Foods. Colton, I'm going to bring you on here, and you're on. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me today.
And where are you coming at us live from here today?
So I am coming in from Gainesville, Georgia today. We are about an hour northeast of Atlanta, and Gainesville is the chicken capital of the world, as they say.
Very cool. And so if you're that direction from Atlanta, you probably aren't too far from the University of Georgia, I imagine, in Athens.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Athens is roughly a 50-minute drive due east of here in Gainesville.
But you are not a University of Georgia Bulldog.
No, I'm actually I'm an A&M Aggie. So I in the past year, actually a year ago, I moved out to Georgia. From South Texas, from San Antonio specifically, but I did my undergrad at Texas A&M University.
Okay. Well, when people think poultry, they think about other companies, your Tyson's, your Sanderson Farms, your Purdue's. Where does Gold Creek Foods fit in the mix in terms of what exactly does Gold Creek Foods do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the bigger guys that you're familiar with, your Tysons of the world, your Sanderson Farms of the world, your Pilgrim's Prides of the world, your Purdue's, folks like that. Those guys are what we call a vertically integrated company, as many of you will be familiar with the term. So those vertically integrated guys raise the bird from the time it's in ovo and prior to hatch, all the way up through the time that bird is slaughtered at their facility. And they own everything that's associated with it as well. So they own the processing plant, they own the feed lot. The feed yards and feed lots that are associated with those chickens. They don't own the farms themselves, but they have contract growers on those farms who grow their birds for them, and they pay them for that product. So they own the feed, they own the chickens, they own the facilities. The only thing they don't own is things like the water and the land that the farmers grow on. Well, at Gold Creek Foods, we don't own the birds at all. We buy in the birds from those vertically integrated guys, and we portion that meat once it gets here. So we buy, boneless, skinless breast or chicken tenders raw. And customers that are interested in sizing the product down into certain sizes or shapes, or just different pieces in different measurements in general, they bring that product here and have us source raw material to cut it down to size, and then the finished product goes either back to them in their desired format or to an end customer on a project that we work on ourselves. So that's the difference.
Okay, so it comes into your plant in larger sizes, maybe in whole chicken breasts, and then you would then process it into maybe it's like bite sizes for chicken nuggets, or I don't know what would be kind
Yeah.
of the product going out.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, a lot of times, I'll give you an example. One of the biggest items that we do is chicken tenders. So, if we receive in a chicken tender, say that's maybe from a 8 pound jumbo bird, we'll buy in that chicken tender. We'll cut it down to a certain size that say that McDonald's or that somebody like Zaxby's or somebody like that that you're familiar with, a big food service customer like that is comfortable with, and we get down to their specifications, and then we send it back to them. Other items, again, just like you said, boneless wings, nuggets, things like that are also items that we produce here. We actually also have the ability and are one of the largest in the industry, as far as further processors go, that produce MSC, mechanically separated chicken, and also ground chicken here at this facility.
Very cool. If I should have been thinking ahead and had us like sitting here with some chicken tenders and just doing this over a beer and some chicken tenders. But next time you're on the show, we'll do that. So yeah, so by portioning, you kind of cut up the poultry or the meat into whatever specifications your client owns. Which it kind of begs the question though, like, why doesn't the original processor, the big vertically integrated poultry processor, why don't they just do that themselves?
That's a really good question too. So a lot of times they kind of weigh the importance of their projects for what they keep in house and what they can feel like they can get done somewhere else, maybe more affordably, or just something that they feel like the things that they keep in house have more precedence over some of the other projects that they're sending out for help. There are times also, just like everybody struggles with in an agricultural setting from time to time, that labor becomes an issue, and they don't have the people in house to be able to handle all of the volume and all of the projects that they have going on at that time. And so that's when we're able to come to the rescue in some sense and some provide some relief there. But and then again, on another degree, there's also a lot of people that feel like we frankly we do a better job at that stuff than what they can.
Hmm.
If quality is something that they absolutely harp on, and that's something that is a little bit more mandatory for that particular project, portioning and further processing is something that we do. That is something that we are experts at, and so they trust our expertise to get that project done a certain way, and that's why we're awarded a lot of projects.
Great. Yeah, I like I was saying earlier, for those of you who just joined, this poultry industry is just incredible. The amount of, first of all, the amount of volume of poultry that we produce and consume, but also just it's really dynamic. You've got live production, which, like you were talking about earlier, Colton, is just the growing of the birds, and you've got a whole industry that feeds the live production of poultry. And then you've got processing, which are a lot of times, like we've been discussing, these vertically integrated processors that are bringing in the live birds and actually harvesting them and processing them. Then you have further processing, which is what we're talking about here today. For those of you who just joined us, we have Colton Cuny. He's with Gold Creek Foods, talking about opportunities in the poultry industry. So each of those, live production, first processing, and further processing, has so many different opportunities around it. Tell us a little bit about your job. Now, your title is Junior Sales Executive at Gold Creek Foods. And so who are you dealing with day to day, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I actually deal with both the buy side and the sell side. So I buy in those raw materials, and my team and I buy in raw materials from the bigger guys, from your Tysons, your Sandersons, your Purdue's, your vertically integrated guys around the country. And we work together to buy in those materials. And then my job specifically is to sell those out the other end. So to go and gain business that we might not have thought about before, to try to jump into different distribution channels and find different end customers. And so my job is to gain a little bit of traction around some of that business, and try to gain interest around the country and promote our product. And so whether that and a lot of that has to do with finding a customer need. We go out and we try to establish what is it that you don't have, and why is it that you don't have it. Is it something that you want to have? Is it something that you've wished to have for a while? In that case, what can we do to maybe alleviate some of that worry? What can we do to fill a void? And so we're very flexible as a company, which is something I'm really proud of. Working for a small company, we have the ability to turn on a dime and be able to meet people's needs, because some of the bigger guys might not have that kind of flexibility, which has been nice. But long story short, my job is to go out and secure business for people in the food industry to take problems off of their no pun intended, take problems off of their plate and solve problems.
Very cool. So would that be mainly people in food service? So if like Buffalo Wild Wings wanted to have, hey, we want chicken tenders shaped like footballs for football season, is that something you could do? I don't know, something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that would be right up our alley. That's a great example. That channel would be food service. So yep, you have your restaurant chains, college and universities, business and industry, stuff like that. And then you have things like school lunch. We got a lot of state bids, for instance, for people who are looking for good quality chicken and other poultry items for school systems. So we get contacted by folks in the school lunch programs all the time. We get contacted by areas like state prisons and other systems like that. We also get contacted by retailers. We do a decent amount of business with retailers. So there's not a whole lot of, if somebody's got a need and if somebody's got a specific item or a spec that they need us to adhere to, there's not really an avenue that we don't play in.
Okay. And you can have that football shaped chicken tender idea, by the way. That's
thanks. You can send me an invoice. That sounds
all
pretty
right.
good.
I'm sure that's probably come up. You have an interesting story about kind of just getting thrown into the mix. So you graduated in 2012, is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Yeah.
2012, Texas A&M, and not long after that, you were given quite a bit of responsibility. Tell us about how you kind of got into this type of role in the poultry industry.
Sure. So when I graduated college, and I graduated in May of 2012, and when I graduated A&M, I was asked. My first job out of school was to go be a night shift debone supervisor in a poultry plant. And I went out to Lufkin, Texas, which for those of you that don't know Lufkin, Texas, it's in the middle of East Texas, and there is a grand total of not a lot going on. That's but I was given a cool opportunity to work there for 8 months, and I got promoted pretty quick because again, labor can really become an issue, as you guys know, a lot of times in the agriculture industry, just because you have to have such a mass amount of numbers running a plant.
Yeah.
Well, so they saw that need and they dragged me in from they dragged me in from just being a management trainee to look, hey, we really need you to step up and take over a supervisor gig. And so I worked night shift debone supervisor for about 8 months. And then I had a guy come in, and his name was Randy Myers. Randy Myers, who now works for OK Foods. Randy Myers came to me one day in the plant. We talked about 30 minutes. And the next week, I guess that conversation led to something that he saw in me. And he asked me to come into sales. And through a couple of different jobs, I landed in corporate. And that corporate office was in Colorado. And that was about a full, I guess that would have been about a full year to year and a half later. I was in Colorado. I was 24 years old. I had absolutely no clue what was going on. And they decided to hand the keys to one of their 26 domestic plants to this knuckleheaded 24-year-old who they saw something in that I definitely didn't see in myself.
You were in charge of sales for the whole plant at 24.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I was in charge in sales for the whole plant. That plant, we were killing we're killing about 650,000 birds per week. And so roughly 5.5 or 6 million pounds is what I was responsible for on a P&L every single week.
And so
that was a lot. And that was a lot. What's that? I'm sorry.
What's that dollar wise? Like 5.5 million pounds. I mean,
at the time, see, that would have been that would have been 3 years ago. At the time, I mean, that roughly equates to being responsible for right at, 5 to 6.5 million pounds or dollars, depending on how many we ended up killing that week. And trust me, when something went wrong that week and a P&L didn't answer the way it was supposed to, I had somebody at my desk that Monday morning wanting to know, what it was that went wrong. But those are all things that, yes, it was absolutely intimidating out of the gate. It was something that, I definitely didn't expect you to be thrown to and given that much responsibility right away. But that being said, it was also one of those things where you don't really know something until you own it.
Mm.
And I've been a big proponent of that ever since that job. The fact that they put that kind of trust in me to get it done said a lot about the company that I worked for at the time, which was Pilgrim's Pride. And it was a humongous learning experience for me.
Yeah, see, it's really interesting because this is maybe the sixth or so career spotlight we've done, and it has been a common theme already in just a few episodes we've done that successful people have said yes right out the gate. Where are you from originally, Colton?
I'm from South Texas, a little bitty town called Kingsville.
Okay.
If you guys have ever heard of, or if y'all have ever seen a Ford truck with a King Ranch edition on the side of it, that King Ranch is where I'm from. So.
Yeah. And so Kingsville, if we were in any other state, Kingsville would be states away from Lufkin, where you ended up going. And so, did you grow up with poultry?
I did not actually. No, I actually went to school to be a business major and was frankly not smart enough to finish business school. And so I went into agriculture, having a little bit of an agriculture background, just growing up around animals and raising them for livestock shows and stuff like that. And more than anything, it was the job placement that really turned my mind toward agriculture. Because people are never going to stop eating, and that's just the bottom line. So
no, it's so true. But what amazes me about this, you go a long ways away from anywhere you've ever been to a town that's, by what you said, not exciting. You're working the night shift. Like, you just said yes. You found the door, you found the opportunity, and you said yes. You said, oh no, I'm not going to wait around for my perfect career. And the way it's sort of catapulted you, I think this is an overlooked point. Everybody is really worried about what's that first job out of college going to look like. And I think you need to pick a direction and go do a good job, and you'll be surprised at where it takes you. I think you're a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I would agree more. Saying yes, and especially early in your career, guys. If I can relate anything to you, this is going to be one of those things that I really do want to emphasize. You're right. There's not enough times that you can say yes early in your career, because there are so many people that aren't your age that have been in this industry for, goodness, 40 years, 30, 40 years, who don't want to do those things anymore. And those are those opportunities for you to step in and be able to take charge of, situations where A, people might not want to, and B, you would be viewed as a valuable asset if you actually did it. So
that's awesome. No, I love that. Now that you're at the point in your career now, if you were to bring someone in, say a new graduate, in their first 6 months on the job, what are the top things, job related lessons you would want them to know? I mean, what are just the real basic job related skills you'd want them to develop in their first 6 months on the job? First
6 months, number one most important thing I can tell you is listen, don't talk. In my opinion, you can't be learning something if your mouth is open. And in any new, and I don't mean that aggressively, I mean that in any new, situation that you find yourself in a job that you're really not as familiar with. Again, these people who've been doing it for 30 or 40 years that are next to you, just be a sponge, literally just listen to what's going on around you, and you'll learn a whole lot more in that short amount of time than what you think. Two, I would say, again, just be a sponge, be that yes guy, do everything that you're asked. Don't really ask questions as to why. These people really feel like, they brought you here for a reason, and they want to teach you as much as they can in X amount of time. And be a sponge. Just completely immerse yourself in every yes that you can possibly find. And then what I really want younger ag people and just younger people who are entering the job force in general to know is that being somebody who's young, in my case, a millennial, which, in an ag setting, there are so many people who have been in this job for a long time, for those 30 or 40 years, that the term, well, that's just the way that it's always been, That's just the way that it always been is not a valid excuse anymore, because the way that companies are evolving and the way that companies see things, they hire young people like us. So they hire people who might have a different approach to things, who maybe are doing things much smarter instead of harder. And the real way to look at that would be, hey, look, I completely agree, and I respect what you're saying, but let me ask a question. Why is that? And if the answer is that's just the way that it's always been, and that shouldn't be good enough for you. That should be something that you really question, because if you have something that can maybe make something more efficient, or you can make something, or you can maybe present a way to make the company more money, or just run better in general, that's your prerogative to be able to insert yourself. So I would say, listen, don't talk, be a sponge, and then kind of question sometimes when people say that's always the way that we've done things. Maybe question that.
Very cool. Is there a story, Colton, you could point to in your career so far, that like something that's happened where you're just like, yes, that is why I do what I do. That is why I love this job. Anything you can kind of give us a peek into there?
You know what? This is actually really immediate. It's something that's happened really recently, and it gives me chills thinking about it. So this year, there were obviously a lot of natural disasters. There were a lot of things that happened with hurricanes and earthquakes and everything else. Well, being that I'm from South Texas, I'm from about 45 miles as the crow flies along the coastline from areas like Port Aransas, Texas, or Rockport, Texas, that were some of the nastiest areas of disaster in the state of Texas, outside of Houston. And the coolest thing that I've been able to be a part of the entire time that I've been in the poultry industry, which is now 6 years, it happened this year, and the company that I'm with, we filled up 3 truckloads of different supplies, of water bottles, of buckets full of cleaning material, different things like that. And we actually shipped these trucks free of charge, down to the people in that area. And the company allowed me, because of me being from that area, to go down and receive that on behalf of the company and behalf of
Oh,
a couple
cool.
other people here in North Georgia. And so I got to meet the truck there. Man, that kind of stuff is just, it makes you grateful to be a part of an industry that truly cares. And I'm not saying that there's not other industries that don't really care, but I feel like in general, the ag industry, they take care of each other more so than, a couple of other industries might. And on top of that, we were able to bring food items down to them. And so working with a part of an industry that, is able to provide food, which is a basic necessity that people might not otherwise be able to have or afford or be given in a situation like that, it was just really special. It was very cool.
That's awesome. That's great that they let you be the one to do that too.
Yeah.
What do you find to be the most challenging or difficult part of your job?
Ooh. I don't know if anything is necessarily, I mean, let me rephrase that. I think everything has a certain degree of challenge to it. But I really think that thinking outside the box and trying to find a customer need sometimes is kind of the hardest time. And what I mean by that is, how do I go into Top Golf corporate, and what menu item do they not already currently have that I've seen on somebody else's menu that they need to have and they would hit a home run with? What is that item? I have no idea. Maybe I can figure that out between, the next 45 minutes that I'm sitting here talking to this sales guy and looking at their menu. Being a brainstormer and thinking outside the box and then presenting those ideas to the people involved is probably the most difficult part of my job.
That's cool. My next question was going to be what keeps you motivated to keep doing it. But if Top Golf was my client, I would be motivated to hit them up all the time. Be like, hey, yeah, why don't I come by? I'm not a golfer at all, but somehow Top Golf is like, I love it. It's great. We get here in Austin, so plug for them.
What motivates me the most, until about 6 weeks ago, I probably would have told you that just being somebody that was a reliable employee, being somebody that showed up every day with the intention of showing the people that put their trust in you that they made the right decision was what drove me. And I can tell you early on, guys, especially in the agriculture industry, I'm just being very honest with you. If you're looking to come in and make $1 million right away, it's not a realistic thought process. And that doesn't mean that there's not good money to be made. What that means is you've got to kind of pay your dues. And then also, there will be some levels that you'll have to go through first before they trust you to go on to the next. So what I would say is show up and prove them right every single day. That was my driving factor until about 6 weeks ago. And then 6 weeks ago, my driving factor now is that I'm going to be a dad pretty soon. And that's really exciting to me. So that is now centerpiece of my life. And that's what's taken over my drive. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, my wife and I just had our second child this month. So
congrats. That's
a little boy. So yeah, it brings a whole new perspective on everything, and in a good way, in a very, very good way. Well, if somebody's out there paying attention, we're about running out of time here, but if they're out there tuning in, and by the way, those of you who are tuning in live, if you want to ask a question, we still have time to ask Colton a question from you as well. But if they're listening and they think, poultry sounds like a great career track, I would love to get into it, but I don't know the first thing about poultry or even where to go look to find out, how do I go get a job in the poultry industry? Where should they go? What should they do to look for that?
I tell you what, I would love to be a personal reference to anybody who's interested in learning. I can send my email to you if that works best, and we can get it out to these folks. That's one way. If you want to know anything about the poultry industry, though, really spend some time with your professors. Your professors the reason that they are professors is because they spent their fair share amount of time in the field that they're in. Your professors, while you've got them as a resource, take full advantage. That's something that looking back, I feel like I used them to a decent amount, but I didn't use them enough as a resource. They can tell you almost everything that there is to know in intricate detail about what that specific part of the industry entails. And then, in the poultry realm specifically, there's so many opportunities, guys. The cool thing about poultry, I'll give a quick shout out to poultry real quick. Poultry actually has poultry science students. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this. Poultry science is a 100% job placement out of college. So if you have no plan, if you have no direction, if you think that poultry might be something that interests you, it's 100% job placement out of school. And that's something that should enthrall many of you, especially as you get closer toward the end of your college career. But yeah, poultry it's a phenomenal industry to be in. And the good news is we've been kicking beef and pork's butt for the last 6 or 7 years now. So that doesn't have a trend that's looking like it's going to go away anytime soon. Poultry is still the most affordable and available protein in the United States. So
very cool. No, you're singing poultry's praises. I know there's at least one person tuning in live. I see we have Annalie in here who's going to be very excited by that. She is in the poultry industry herself, so very cool. And for those of you tuning in, I'm gonna if we could, Colton, we'll put your email in the comments under this Facebook Live broadcast. But then also, if anyone tuning in would like to kind of help get connected, if you go to jobs.aggrad.com, you can create a profile as a candidate in there. And what we've been doing is allowing that's kind of the first step to getting into our community. We'll communicate with you through there, and then also get your information in front of employers ultimately as well. So that's another opportunity for you to head there. But Colton, I can't thank you enough for the time. I wish we had another half hour to do this, because this has been fun. But we'll have to bring you back on the next time with some chicken tenders shaped like footballs.
Yeah, I'll go work on your idea right now, actually.
Right. And if you're ever in Topgolf in Austin, I am very close to Topgolf in Austin. So
I'll tell you what, I'm going to be down in San Antonio second week of December, so I'll give you a shout.
All right, Colton, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast here. Thank you all who tuned in live, and those of you listening to this recorded. Please feel free to reach out to Colton or go create a profile on aggrad.com.